Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Aimal, and today we will be discussing the philosophy of metamorphosis. But before we do that, I will explain to you two things. One, I will introduce Kafka to you, because if I don't, you won't really understand on what basis he wrote Metamorphosis. And the second thing that we will talk about is I will give you the shortest summary of the book itself. I have my notes over here, so if I'm looking away, it means I'm looking at my notes, most likely. Introduction to Kafka. Kafka was born in 1883 in Prague, to a German Jewish family in a society which was mostly Czech dominated. And even as a kid, Kafka felt away from the people. He felt distant from the people, and he felt like an outsider. That was the childhood of Kafka. Now, here comes the most important part, his relationship with his father. Kafka's father was Hermann Kafka, and Franz Kafka is the son's name. Now, Hermann Kafka was a strong, loud, and dominant man, while Franz Kafka was a thin, slender, and he really didn't look dominant from his body nor from his way of speech, Nothing expressed dominance. He just seemed like a normal guy. And his father didn't like that. Ever since a kid, and even when he grew up, he longed for his father's love, which he never got. And that shaped his philosophy and shaped the way he wrote. Now, Kafka had a dual life. Kafka didn't, write as a whole. He had a dual life. What happened was his father wanted him to become a lawyer, and wanting his father's love, he actually did become a lawyer. He actually went to law school, and he got a job in an insurance office where throughout his table there were just piles upon piles of paper, and he didn't care about it. He didn't like the job. He didn't give a single damn about it. All he was doing was just working his hours, wanted to make his father happy. But there was a point in his life and throughout the day where he used to get peace. When he used to come back home, he would write. And that is when he felt at peace, only at night. Now, Kafka had other problems in his life as well, not just with his father. He got engaged multiple times, but unfortunately, he canceled the marriage every single time he got engaged. And that left a huge mark on his life. And he lived a double Franz Kafka. One, the pleasure of the world, and the other, himself as a writer. Now, Kafka died at a young age. I want you guys to guess at what age he died. Comment down below. He died at the age of, I'll let this be. He had tuberculosis, and it was a very painful death. He never felt peace with it. And before he died, he had this friend. His name was Max Brod, and he told Max to never publish his writings. He told Max to burn it all away and just didn't feel like publishing it. He never felt like coming to the space where people would recognize him. He thought his work was not wanted. Of course, Max Brod didn't listen to him, and he published his works. He organized them and published them. We have beautiful works like The Trial, the America, we have The Castle, and of course, The Metamorphosis. Ironically, Kafka didn't believe in his works, but we are discussing his works 100 years later. Now let's jump into the chapters of Metamorphosis. Chapter 1. Gregor Samsa is the main character in the book. Gregor Samsa wakes up one morning and he sees that his body is alienated. It's changed, and nothing is like his past self. But he doesn't worry about the body. What he worries about is his job. He's late for work, and he's like, what time is it? Oh, it's late. He has to go to work. He has to pay for his father's debt. He has to take care of the family. He's the provider, and he's late for work. And he worries about it, just like any other human being. Now, there's a lot of symbolisms in this story, and I will try to, handle all of them. Now, Kafka expresses Gregor, right? Kafka expresses himself in Gregor Samsa. Now, Samsa wakes up and he looks around himself, but his body is changed. He's not him. He's a vermin, a bug, an insect. And people are knocking the door. It's his father, Mr. Samsa, his mother, Miss Samsa, and his sister, Grete. They're knocking at the door, and he's trying to communicate with them, trying to answer them that he's okay, and maybe he's, trying to get up or something like that. But the truth is, he is alienated, and his voice cannot be understood by them. This is one of the symbolisms. Imagine you change. Imagine your thoughts change. I'll give you the example of Socrates. When Socrates was different from his people in Athens, what happened? People killed him. The court decided that he was guilty, that he should be killed. And what happened? He died, right? He was murdered. It's considered to be the first murder of philosophy. This is exactly what's happening, right? This is exactly what's happening. Even Kafka's father didn't listen to him, and he wouldn't pay heed to whatever his son said. Exactly that's what's happening here. At this point in time, the chief clerk comes in. The chief clerk comes in, and he asks the Samsa family, where's Gregor? And the Samsa family, they say, well, Gregor's in his room, he hasn't come out. He thinks they're lying. This symbolizes that even if you work hard, the people don't care about you. The people don't care how hard you've worked. We must know that Gregor Samsa was the top guy. He was just there. He was the top guy in the whole form. And now that Gregor's not there, just one day, Gregor's not there, the chief clerk comes in, and he knocks at the door as well. Nothing happens. But ironically, Gregor Samsa, he opens the door. His body's hurting, his legs aren't supporting him, but he opens the door through his mouth. And now that he's opening the door, slowly and gradually, he gets behind the door and he peeks out. And he peeks out, everybody sees him. But he is not a human. He's a vermin. And in this chaos, the chief clerk runs away. This symbolizes that the government, the bureaucracy, doesn't care about you. He runs away, and Gregor thinks, what's happening? He rushes outside, and his mother faints. Grete, his sister, she grabs the mother and pulls her back into another room. And the father, scared, but he picks up a walking stick and he brushes Gregor back into the room. Now that he brushes him back into the room, he shuts the door. This is the end of chapter 1. This symbolizes something. Alienation equals change in attitude of people, and the shutting door also represents something. That the people will exclude you from everything. Everything. All of it. Once you're changed, you're alienated. And that is chapter number 1 of the book. Chapter number 2. Now Gregor wakes up in the evening and his body's hurting. It's hurting, and it's his left side mostly. What he sees across the room is a bowl, and in that bowl there is milk. And it is said that Gregor loves milk. Gregor Samsa the human, he loves milk. And he gets excited, even as a vermin, even as an insect, he gets excited and he jumps up and crawls to the milk. But as he crawls and he puts his mouth there, he recoils back. He doesn't like it. This is also symbolism. How is this symbolism? When you change, the way your materialistic desires change as well, right? Your mundane materialistic human desires are cars and whatever not, but if you're alienated, you're changed, you would think of something else now. And it will be shown to you how. The Grete, the sister, she opens the door and she sees that the milk hasn't been touched, although Gregor loves milk. So what she does is she takes back the milk and she brings old food, stale cheese, old vegetables, and she puts that there. And what happens is Gregor eats them. Gregor loves them. Do you understand the symbolism? Your own materialistic desires change when you alienate. Now, time passes by, and Gregor's father, Mr. Samsa, he makes up his mind that no one should be interacting with him other than food. That's it. No one should be going into the room, because what happened to the chief clerk must not repeat anywhere else. And at this time, the woman who used to work in the house, she left because they don't have enough money. She's young. This is also symbolism. A young woman will have children, will have a husband, will have a house, and she needs to keep up with them. And the husband, in a poor society, he can't really do anything on his own. So what happens is that the woman must support her husband. And a young woman will require more money. Children, school, it's all that drama. And an old woman, she wouldn't, but now she's a young woman and she leaves. Gregor knows about this. But what he also realizes is that his father, Mr. Samsa, he had money. And it breaks his heart. It truly breaks his heart that you made me work and now you had money, right? He's also thinking about these thoughts, how his whole life he wanted to earn money and help his father pay off his debt. His mother should be happy in her life, and his sister, who loved playing the violin, she must go to a music academy and she must learn to be a professional music player. All of those dreams are crushed. And at this point, Gregor is learning to crawl around the room, around the ceilings, around the walls and everything, and he's adapting to the new body of his. And his sister finds out. The sister tells the mother's first hesitant. She speaks to her sister and says, well, maybe what if Gregor returns back? Hope, optimism. What if he returns back? What if he returns back to his own form, and he wouldn't want his room to be changed, just like any mother would want. She wouldn't want her child to have a changed room, almost different from how they left it. But Greta still convinces her mother, and she tells her that, no, Mom, we must change the room. We must change how it is. And the mother agrees. The mother says, okay, fine. And Gregor realizes something. He wants to stay a bit human. So what he does, he grabs onto a picture, and it's a picture of a woman. And it symbolizes that he still wants to be connected to the humanity. He still wants to be connected to his human self. But the work starts, and the sister, Greta and Mrs. Samsa, they open the door. And when Mrs. Samsa sees her son, she faints again. And at this point, Greta gets mad. She's infuriated. She screams at her brother and she says, it's all because of you. And in this chaos, amidst all this chaos, Gregor is confused. He's lost. And he rushes out the door. But at that point, the main door opens and the father comes in. And remember the restriction of the father? No going into Gregor's room. And he sees Gregor. And remember the relation between Hermann Kafka and Franz Kafka. The father picks up apples and he shoots his son with it. All of them miss, but as Gregor's crawling to his room, one of the apples strikes his back, and it's engraved inside of his back now. So it's in his back. But Mrs. Samsa, she gets up and she begs her husband, Mr. Samsa, to not throw apples at their son. And so he stops. But the apple's still stuck in his back. And the room then again shuts. And this shows us that Gregor realizes he's completely rejected. No one wants him. No one wants to be with Gregor. Everybody is excluding him from every single thing. And Gregor feels that. And that's the end of chapter 2. Moving on to chapter 3. The last chapter of the book. Gregor is in his room, and weeks have passed by. We don't know how much time has passed by, but the apple, it was in his back, and it has physically hurt him, haunted him, and now his mentality, his mental peace, it's gone. His back is hurting. He can't even lay on his back now. So what happens is Gregor has existential thoughts. What's the meaning of life? I mean, I'm excluded from everything. Is there meaning to anything anymore? And now the sister, Grete, she's also excluding him. She doesn't really care for him. The room is full of... It's dusty. It's dusty. It's full of garbage now. And Gregor has also got dust on his back, on himself. No one has cleaned him. And the family is altogether, they've moved on. Mr. Samsa's got a job at the bank. Mrs. Samsa is Sue's clothes now. And Grete, the sister, she has a job now. She's a sales girl, just like her brother. And they're moving, and they got a new woman to work for them, and it's an old woman, ironically. And like I said in the beginning, the young woman would desire more money because she has to take care of her children, etc. But the old woman, she wouldn't really care about anything, and, well, she would expect less. And Gregor is in his room, and his back is paining. No one has plucked the apple from his back. And around that time, 3 men wanted to lodge in the house. They wanted to rent a room. But they had 2 conditions. 1, they must be entertained. And 2, the men expected cleanliness around the room. They wanted complete cleanliness. There should be no dirt, nothing. And so, one night, the men were having dinner, and Grete is playing violin in front of her parents. And mind that Gregor is listening to all these things. And the men, expecting entertainment, they call Grete to come in, and it would be lovely if she plays the violin for them. And she says, okay. And they go in. She's playing the violin in the kitchen, and everyone's at peace. People are happy. It was almost as if they forgot that Gregor existed, and they had all this drama going on. And Gregor's listening to this. And in his mind, there's this thought running. What if I open the door and go in and check on my family? Maybe they will accept me. It's a lovely moment. And the people will accept me for who I am now. But it's a mistake. And you'll find out how. Gregor opens the door, and he rushes towards them. And when he rushes towards them, his sister is still playing in the kitchen, and notice that he's dust on his back, and he's a vermin, which is going against the second condition of the men, that there must be no garbage in the house. It must be clean. What would an insect be doing? Such a big insect with dust on its back. It's a problem. He goes into the kitchen, and the men see him, and they're shocked and astonished, but at the same time, they're like, what? Such a huge vermin, such a huge insect, a bug. And at that point, they tell the Samsa family that they wouldn't want to stay in the house any longer because it's dirty and crisis. One of their means of income is gone, it's lost, and no one's paying them for anything any longer. And at this point, the father again shoves Gregor into the room. So Gregor's locked again. And Grete, who is the ally of her brother, she raises the voice against him, and she says, we can't really keep him any longer. We must get rid of him. And she doesn't call him, she calls him it. We must get rid of it, as if he's no longer the brother. And the mother dislikes the idea, but then she realized that yes, we must. And so, the next morning, when the lady comes in and she opens Gregor's room, she finds him, but he's dead. Gregor died. The pain and everything. Gregor dies. She calls the Samsa family. They're almost happy, relieved. A huge burden is gone. And Gregor, lying there in his room, they dispose of the body out, and there's a relief, a sense of fulfillment, as if they have achieved something they wish to achieve. Garbage is out of the house. Bye-bye, garbage. Gregor's gone. His story ends there, and they make a plan that they will move out of this house to somewhere else, and they do. And in the end scene, Grete extends her body when she gets out of the vehicle to the new house, to the new lodging. And the Samsa parents, they get this idea that Grete is supposed to care for them. And Gregor, He's a story of the past. No one really cared for him any longer. No one really cared for what Gregor was going through. He was just unwanted at that point. And this was the story of Gregor Samsa. Now I'll get into the philosophical themes. Now, Metamorphosis isn't just a story about a guy who has been suffering, right? Being a vermin, filled with philosophical themes. I won't be discussing all of them. You can take out a lot of them, but I will be discussing the ones that are most prominent. And the first one we have is absurdity and alienation. Gregor wakes up transformed as an insect. This shows existentialism. There is no reason why he's a monster, why he's an insect. Monster in the eyes of people. There's no answer to that. He just wakes up and he's a villain in the eyes of people. Why did he become that? Why was he chosen? There's no answer to that. It was just, he just happens to be. That's existentialism. And another thing that we have is absurdism. Absurdism is highlighted in the theme. It's one of the themes. How his family, Gregor Samsa's family and employees react in a specific way, right? They didn't care about the practical concerns. They cared more about themselves, the provision. He would provide to the bureau. He would provide to his family, to Grete, to Mr. and Mrs. Samsa. He would provide for the household. He would provide for the company. But no one cared what happened to him. No one cared about him. Other things that he has discussed. The second topic is dehumanization. Dehumanization and identity loss. He's lost his identity. And Franz Kafka pushes us to question ourselves. Who are you? What is your relationship to the people around you? To your friends? Are you the one who has to pay for everything? Are you the one who just is the money lender? Who are you? This is the question that we need to answer. Who am I to my parents? Who am I to my siblings? Lastly, the one I'm going to be explaining is the burden of duty and sacrifice. Who's burdened with duties? Who's burdened with sacrifices? He was hated, despised by his own family, Gregor. And he had duties to fulfill. He couldn't be late, otherwise he couldn't provide for nothing, anything. He was just a pawn in the game of chess. That is what Gregor's duty was, and he despised it. But what could he have done? What? Nothing. Nothing. No one would. He found the answer at the end of the book in chapter 3. No one cared about him. Absolute rejection. And these are the themes that have been discussed. The major ones. Of course, there's the existentialist theme, which we can delve into even deeper. There's the isolation theme, multiple themes. We're just going to relate to that. Now we have concluded the video. This was not all about Metamorphosis. There's more we can discuss, but we won't. It took me a lot of time to make. I hope you guys liked it. And comment down below what more you want, and I will try to make it better, of course. I'll try to make the engagement better as well. You guys shove all of your ideas into the comment section, and I will be reading it. I love replying to your comments. That's it for today. Thank you, ladies and ladies, gents, and bye-bye. Take care.